All hands to battle stations. Emergency stupid overload. I just couldn't help myself. I had to make a daily dose of stupid so soon after the last one because Fisch, oh God, you have got to be kidding me, right? This is the hill you're choosing to die on. Really? Of all of the hills that you could have died on, Realm Rampage, Souls RNG, Fishing Simulator for God's sakes? Nope, Fisch is the one you picked. Fuck me, I guess. So there was a bit of a dumbassery overload when I put out my video talking about how much of a dumpster fire Fisch is, including but not limited to the developer themselves, who, while they attempted to handle criticism relatively well, made some of the worst arguments I've seen in quite a while. So why not start there? That's a pretty good starting point. Let's look at what the developer himself had to say about what I had to say about his game, because historically, this always works out. This is the one and only developer of Fisch. I wanted to thank you for the great video. While some of the critiques clearly reflect that you've only reached level 6, there were still many valuable points that I truly appreciate. Your feedback means a lot. That said, I do want to kindly remind you that Fisch is a passion project for me. It's a hobby, not my full-time job. Balancing college and family commitments is my top priority, which explains some of the back-end issues and areas that still need improvements. Thank you again for your understanding and for taking your time to share your thoughts, but I wish you could have spent more time to realize what sets the game apart rather than directly talking on my young teenaged game design flaws. Now let me be 100% clear, this is a manipulative message at best and a sinister message at worst. And it might not seem like that at face value, but let me try to explain. This person is very obviously trying to put me into a no-win scenario. They're trying to simultaneously make it seem like they've taken the criticism that I gave them in stride, but also saying that the things that I said didn't have merit because I didn't play the game long enough. But the reason that that stuff doesn't hold up whatsoever is because, well, if I'd played the game more, what would have changed? The reason that they don't actually say any of those things is because nothing would have changed. You play the same minigame at level 1 that you would play at level 86. It doesn't change. You play the same minigame whether you have the best fishing rod in the game or a level 1 fishing rod. Again, doesn't change. You may have a boat that goes faster. You may have a fishing rod that makes it easier to do the minigame, but the minigame is the same, and the minigame is the entire game. I did not have to make it to level 80 to know that the minigame was never going to change. If there was some revolutionary switch up to gameplay that comes later down the line and makes the game suddenly worth playing, then our developer here would have come into the comments section and said, hey, after level 15, you unlock the ability to do X, Y, and Z, and suddenly that makes the game better. But they didn't do that because there isn't anything there. And what sets the game apart? Okay, what sets the game apart from what exactly? The rest of Roblox fishing games? Because that's not saying a whole lot. But the difference between your game and something like Fishing Simulator, well, there's not a whole lot going on here, is there? In Fishing Simulator, you go to areas and you do a fishing minigame, it catches fish, and you can use the money you get to buy new fishing rods and new boats. In Fisch, you spawn in, you go to a fishing area, you use your fishing rod, play a minigame, and then you use the money you get to buy new fishing rods and new boats. So, what exactly sets you apart from Fishing Simulator? Is it that the minigame is slightly different? Because I got bad news for you. That's not the defense that I think that you think it is, and you know that that's not the defense that you think it is. And the reason I know that you know that it's not the defense you think it is because you copy and pasted this minigame from Stardew Valley, something that was pointed out by a ton of people in my comment section. And the reason that I know you know that you copy-pasted this from Stardew Valley is because you even had the audacity to lift sound effects directly from that game. So, if the only thing that's setting you apart from a game like Fishing Simulator is the minigame that you just directly stole from a different video game, mind you, a video game that this is a mini game in, not the whole game, And then you have the audacity to say it's a passion project? This mechanic that is the entire game that you directly copy and pasted from another game is your passion project. Are you fucking kidding me? Why is anybody falling for this? How did 739 people fall for this PR speak bullshit? Seriously, guys, do better. Now, moving on from the developer, we have to talk about the idiots who support the developer. And starting off with that, we have a comment that has 512 likes, which is depressing. And they said, still more fun than 80% of current Roblox games. Can I just, end it all? Are your standards so unbelievably low that you'll just, eat up slop because it's better than the complete garbage that the rest of the platform has? So I just jumped on and went on to some of the other fishing games, right? I just jumped on and I played 6 of them in a row. And yeah, you got me. They're really fucking bad. So does really fucking bad automatically excuse slightly better? No. And that means your standards are in the toilet. They're gone. When you set your standards to something like this, where it's literally just clicking, there's nothing here, it's just clicking. You click to play the game. If that's where your bar is set, and in this one, you click and hold instead of just clicking, suddenly it's, oh my god, God's gift of fishing games. We have the best fishing game ever created, boys. We did it. No! And if you're so lazy as to think that the Roblox platform is incapable of making good games, so much so that 80% of games are less fun than this, I just don't know what to tell you. The whole excuse of it's just Roblox, so we can accept garbage, is the thing that I've been fighting against since day one, and I'll continue fighting against it until the day I fucking die. Now, this one we got a lot of, and it's just people that are fucking brain dead. Eclipse, it's a game about fishing. Are you expecting fast-paced combat fighting random-ass trouts? No, obviously not. But what I am expecting is more of an actual video game. I've played plenty of games on here that are not just fighting games. Have you perhaps seen my myriad reviews on platforming games? Those don't have fighting in them, do they? There's some weird misconception that all of the games that I play must have fighting mechanics, otherwise I won't like them, which is absolutely ridiculous. But the general vibe that I get from a lot of these people is that I shouldn't expect anything from a fishing game. So I should just have zero expectations going in. I shouldn't expect any innovation. I shouldn't expect any sort of good game. I should just expect the same garbage that every other game has been doing. My expectations should be set on the floor from the very get-go. And if I have any sort of faith that they can actually do something right, I should drop it before I even start. That is the most reductive, awful mindset I've ever heard, and yet it's being promoted by hundreds of people in the comment section of this video. Guys, get your act together. Move your standards out of the gutter. You can play this entire game with one fucking hand. That should be a red flag. Here we go again. To be honest, I think Fisch has potential, but the core of the game is fine aside from bugs and such. It's a fishing game, so I don't know what you'd expect from its mechanics. Some mechanics, literally some mechanics that aren't just the same thing over and over again. Literally any mechanics. There are none! Outside of the very first minigame that you play 2 minutes into the game doesn't have mechanics, guys! I feel like I'm talking to brick walls. I can't with this. It's just a sandbox collectathon. Not everything needs to have linear progression? When the hell did I mention linear progression in this game? And not only that, but this game has pseudo-linear progression. Several items in the game, like boats, are level locked, which means that you need to, hear me out here, participate in linear progression going up in levels. Do you even know what you're saying? I don't think you know what that word means. This is the first time I have ever disagreed with Eclipse on something. Uh-oh. I get this game is kinda a mess, but it's simply a collectathon game where you find as many different fish as you can while selling the fish you get to make getting different fish easier. It's simple, and I agree it definitely needs some work, but when you don't really want to try to play a video game, but just kinda enjoy the simplicity of collecting fish, in that aspect, it's enjoyable to me. If you do read the eclipse, I apologize for my miserable grammar. Well, at least they're self-aware. Whoever this is, you know who you are. And the only thing that I have to ask you is, how long have you been here? Genuine question. And I know that I'm not going to ever hear the response, but you know who you are, so you can rationalize this with yourself. How long have you been here? And, like, if it's outside of 2 weeks, where the fuck have you been? I've trashed on Fisch Game, I've trashed on Souls RNG, all for the exact reasons that you're currently describing. So, why, pray tell, did you not disagree with me on those videos? But this one, suddenly a switch went off and you're like, oh, I can't handle this. This is too much. Fisch Game I made fun of for being barely a video game, to the point where I literally, in the video, started playing a different game while I was playing it, and in a lot of cases, was still successful despite playing 2 games at once. That game's a game where you just don't want to play a video game and enjoy the simplicity of collecting fish, but this is the first time that you disagreed with me. That just strikes me as very odd. The next guy on here, Adam, says, fun fact to talk about this guy. His an adult, he like a game that is competitive, he really nitpicking, bro totally don't have friends to play with. And I don't even need to respond to this guy. Elijah has it covered for me. Adam, your first day of school is tomorrow. Get off your iPad and go to sleep. Thank you, Elijah. I appreciate the help. And the final comment is very akin to the developer comment, where I think a lot of people see just a lot of words and they don't actually sort of try to analyze what the words are actually saying to realize that you can type out a lot of words but actually not be saying anything at all. And that's this comment right here. Okay, after sitting through this review, I have to say that I understand why the comments are on you, especially with how you're treating a game that is still early in development. Here we go with that shitty ass excuse again. Some of the language and nitpicks in this are wholly frustrating to listen to, and this is a review I wholeheartedly disagree with. It's not a review, but whatever. I'm breaking down what I find wrong with this into 3 points. You had a lot of text to come up with 3 points. Most of your critiques are overly petty given the comments you provide alongside them. The most outrageous examples being 342 and 720. For the former, there is absolutely no effect this laggy cast has on gameplay aside from being a small nitpick to instead handle it on the client rather than the server, which I will concede on. Okay, but you did not have to complain about it to that extent, since you're just ballooning it. Yes, I did have to complain about it for as much as I did, because this game has so little inside of it that one of the only things that you will be doing and seeing other people do is casting a fishing line. That is one of the only things. That is the pillar of the entire game. And despite the pillar of the entire game's foundation being built on this, it's broken. This is something that the developer had to look at hundreds, if not thousands of times. You will have to look at it hundreds, if not thousands of times. The developer himself said, this is a passion project. They're so passionate about their game that they could not be bothered to check to make sure that when you cast your fishing line, it actually goes out smoothly and doesn't jitter around. And yes, you said it yourself. All they need to do is make it so that this casting function is on the client rather than the server. That's all they needed to do. But they didn't do that, and that's the exact point that I'm making. They looked at this hundreds of times, and over all of those times, never once thought to themselves, this looks like shit. Maybe I should change it because it looks like shit. And you'll be looking at this over and over and over again. But no, even on this tiny little part, they cut corners. But you seem incapable of acknowledging the fact that this is absolutely a big deal. It's a showcasing of how this person feels about their entire game. This is not a passion project. It is a cash-in. It is somebody copy-pasting Stardew Valley's fishing concepts and then making money off of stupid children on Roblox. That's what this is. As for the latter, it's important to recognize that not only is the default UI list layout sorting order alphabetical, much like the boats are organized in that list, which you failed to notice, setting it to layout order would also require some extra programming to get it right. Oh no! Especially because the boats you purchase and own are set to be ordered to the top of the list. If you knew how this worked technically, you could have proposed a mock table.sort. Wait, is it my job to tell the developer how to code their own game? Since when was it my job to tell them how to code their game for them? Rather than going on a tangent about shitty games like this, you completely trash the game's effort. The effort? You just said it! They couldn't be bothered to code their table so that way it works like every other table in any game ever created. Instead, they just used the default and didn't change it. You just explained how lazy this is. You are explaining it to yourself, dude. I don't even need to do anything here. You're invalidating yourself. Like, was this supposed to be some sort of gotcha? Like, haha, Eclipse, clearly the developer never changed the default and that's the way it's like this. That's the defense, I guess. On the data loss issue, I do know that Roblox was having data problems or generally issues with all of their services around the time you may have been recording this. And then they go on to basically say the same thing over and over again. I'm not going to waste your time. But what I will tell you is that several people let me know that the developers themselves apparently said something about there being a bug with data store issues that they fixed. So, as far as I understand it, to this day, this is still on the developers. Regardless of all of that, this is an extremely minor point on the grand scheme of my entire video. At 9:17 within the volcano, instead of looking at the more obvious platforms within the center of the lava, you instead hike up this seemingly arbitrary and much less obvious platforming section to then jump up a slope that you were obviously trying your hardest to get up, and rather than assuming this seems a little strange to do, is this the correct way to use the glider to do this strange parkour that I made up in my head, you instead find a way to complain about the game's design by pushing the building to the limits and egregiously roasting the game and its design because you blew up this issue way more than it needed to be. No, I didn't. Okay, let me tell you Game Design 101. If you do not want people to be able to get on top of things, or more importantly, if there is no reason for you to get on top of something, then you don't let players get on top of it. You say later, this is why developers add invisible walls. No, you don't need invisible walls here. All you need to do is make it so that way there isn't directly a way you can parkour up the side of the volcano. Let you in on a little secret. If you go inside the volcano and you do the parkour that you were saying I just made up in my head, you get to a little overlook area that you can see the rest of the island from. There's nothing up here. There's no reason to go up here. But the game developers clearly intended you to go up here because there is stuff up here. There's a fence and everything. So let me ask you, if they didn't want me to get up there at all, then why was there a way up and why were there fences? But regardless, the point stands. If they did not want me getting up on top of the mountain, then they should have made it impossible to get on top of the mountain. These sloped areas that I climbed up, you shouldn't have been able to climb. But you can. And when you give players the ability to do stuff like that, you automatically make them think, hey, there's probably something up there. And when you combine that with the fact that somebody just earlier said there's effectively a hidden object on this island, go find it, well, I don't know what else to tell you, man. I'm sure the developer is going to go through and change the dialogue on the NPC to say something along the lines of, the rod was stolen, which will fix some of the issues that I had with this entire area. But you're not going to care about that. You would rather trash on me for using the things that the game gave to me in order to try to make the game more interesting than it was. That's your complaint here. Your complaint here is effectively boiled down to, Eclipse, you had too much faith in the game developers to make an actually interesting area. My journey to get to the top of the volcano was hands down the most involved thing that I did in the entire game, and it led to nothing because I had too much faith in the developers to actually do something interesting and actually add some challenge into their game. The most challenging thing in the game, and it's unintended. Go figure. So if we circle all the way back to the very beginning of this message and what I was saying at the start, so much text for so little said, I can boil all of this down into basically a few sentences. Eclipse, you overreacted about the phishing line casting being server-side versus client-side, and it can easily be fixed. The list for the boats was automatically set to alphabetical order because that's the default, and they can very easily change it. The data issue may have been on Roblox's end, but I have no idea. And therefore it's your fault for not knowing whether or not it was on Roblox or the developers. And number 3, you should have less faith in the game developers, because if you ever see something that might actually look interesting, it's not, and what you're doing is unintended. Now, you might see a trend with a lot of those things, which is easily fixable. Well, if it was easily fixable and easily noticeable, then you'd think that it would have been fixed by this passionate developer before, someone like me came along and tore it to shreds. But it didn't. I wonder why. They conclude the message by saying that they're surprised by the developer saying that the feedback meant a lot, and I already explained why the developer said that my feedback meant a lot, because it doesn't actually mean a lot. That's PR speak. And that's it. I can't go on with this stuff. There's too much crap, there's so much more, and it's all saying the same stuff. Don't fall for the PR speak. Passion project and early in development is not a shield for criticism. That's all I have to say. We're done. I'll see you next time.